Hello, ladies and gentlemen. While some videos are processing, I thought I'd do an audio log. I mean, why not? It's been a while since I've done one, and there's quite a lot to talk about, whether it comes to interests or whether it comes to books and stuff. So I've decided to create a list of all the books that I've read, which will hopefully give you an insight on how much or what areas of stuff I know about when it comes to World War II. I read a ton of books. I think they're very important to a person's understanding of basically everything. And so eventually, I'd probably do a video just going over the books that I've read specifically to World War II. Maybe in another time we'll do a full list of all the books I've read, at least over the last years, but it will be a long list, so I'm not sure it would be so good. So, moving on, the book that I've been reading recently, after finishing a lot of books based around tanks and also the experiences of tank crews, is called Cries. It is the most stirring speeches from history's greatest warriors, activists, politicians, and revolutionaries. It is written by James Inglis, but when you actually type his name into Google, you will actually get a British man which is executed for the murder at the age of 29. You'll get some evangelist from the 1800s, and then a former Minister of Public Instruction from the 1800s. So yeah, I thought that was just kind of funny when I was having a look. But basically, if you're interested in speeches from even the ancient world to nowadays, the 21st century, basically the chapters range from part 1 is Gods, Kings and Heroes, the ancient world, and then it moves through the ages. The interesting ones for me personally are part 5, 6 and 7. We have the First Global War, so the early 20th century, the rise and fall of fascism, which is the mid-20th century, and the post-war world, so the second half of the 20th century. Then it goes into times of terror, which is obviously modern day, or at least the 21st century. And it also has a few bits about liberation, revolution and stuff in the period of, like, you know, the 1000 to the 1800s. And it is actually really interesting. The speeches that he has picked, especially when you look at the World War II speeches, are generally not just the ones which are the most popular ones. It's also a collection of ones which kind of are interesting. When he does speeches from Adolf Hitler, he actually takes a lot of speeches from pre-World War II. So actually, instead of just what was happening in World War II and the propaganda around it, actually how he was able to gain power and his message to the people that they accepted. I think it's very important for individuals to read stuff like that, to listen to speeches, to read speeches from people like Stalin, from people like Hitler, from all sorts of people, just to try and understand how these people do gain power. I think one of the issues of the current time is everybody is great at throwing around the word Nazi or calling people fascists, but they don't know what it means or where it came from. There was a wonderful video I watched from an Austrian lady who talked about how Hitler came to power in Austria, because you got to remember, Austria was never militarily controlled as per se. They actually voted Hitler to be head of Austria as well as Germany. And the reasons for it are because the Austrians were struggling. They had high unemployment, nobody had any money. The place was not doing well under their current policies. So they brought in somebody who said that he would fix it. And you've got to understand that generally when people get to that point, get to so much strife and so much pain, that's when these leaders come out of the woodwork. And that's when they come, and you've just got to watch out for them. All you've got to do is read their speeches, read their manifestos, read where they're from. I would even say that it is correct for people to read stuff like Mein Kampf. Not to agree with the ideas or anything like that, even if you do, you know, that's fine. but it is something that should be read. And when I was younger, when I was in school, I had the privilege of reading stuff like Animal Farm by George Orwell, and many of Shakespeare's plays, and, you know, Twelfth Night and Macbeth and stuff like that. And you generally get a feel of how people operate. Of Mice and Men was also another one. And also, I can't remember what it's called. It's got Atticus Finch in it, if anybody can can find out. I might as well do it now, since this is much more of just a... oops. It's To Kill a Mockingbird, isn't it? I know it is. I'll just make sure. Yes, it's To Kill a Mockingbird. Another book which definitely should be read. Also Huckleberry Finn. Also Lord of the Flies. All of these books, I would say, are necessities for somebody who is trying to at least understand parts of the world. Understand where people get their ideas from. Understand where they can come from. And generally, you know, it will just help you with general conversation about certain issues. Yes, every author has his biases. Yes, it is correct to read both sides of the story. But there are definitely key books that I would recommend to a lot of people that should be read. Moving on to games, I've obviously been playing a lot of War Thunder. Gaijin giving out 5 new vehicles, plus the opportunity to get 2 others, the i301 and the Su-76M, means that basically I've been playing War Thunder pretty much exclusively, which is great for the channel itself, because it means, you know, I can make some really good videos, and obviously that's evolving all the time with more editing and stuff like that. But it does mean that some games fall by the wayside. Right now I'm running out of other games content, which you've probably seen with a lot of repeated videos from the same games instead of some new ones. But now that all of the challenges and stuff are done, I can get back to that. So stuff like Majesty, stuff like Medieval 2 Total War, they'll all come back. I've also been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm actually released a... what would you call it? They call it Hero of the Storm 2.0. And it's basically a addition to the game. They've added loot chests, so every time you gain a level with a hero, you get a loot chest. They've added a bunch of emojis, they've added a bunch of stamps, and they've basically just made it easier for the common player to get skins, to get new mounts, to get everything. One of the issues I had with Heroes of the Storm, because I've played it on and off for about a year now, is the fact that it took me a very long time to really do anything. You have the free-to-play unit rotation, the hero rotation, which is really nice. But now that they've added to it, where, you know, actually getting levels with a character means something instead of just getting them to level 5 and level 10 and getting a skin, now you have a random generator in the form of a loot box. So very similar to something like Overwatch, if you've ever played that. And I just generally think it's a better system. Heroes of the Storm did need maybe a little bit of revitalization. I haven't had a look at the numbers, but I'm still in a position where I still can't play ranked. As a casual player, you need 14 heroes at level 5, which is actually quite a lot. And I'm at about 9 right now, and hopefully in the next week or so, I'll be able to play a bit more. Paragon, I've just kind of not really forgotten about, because I think the game's great, but I think it needs a little bit more adding to it. The issue I'm running into in Paragon is, after doing pretty well in the ranked game mode, or, you know, the only game mode, which is PvP, I'm running into 5 stacks constantly, and as a player who doesn't have 4 people to play with, it just means we get out-rotated, obviously the communication isn't there, and you just get stomped. So I got my account up to Platinum, I believe it is, which is about the top 3%, maybe 2% of people, and I'm just going to leave it there until they add in some kind of system where you can solo queue against other solo players, duo queue, or party queue, just like how some other games have it. Because otherwise, I'm just going to keep getting beaten. Even if my individual skill is better than the enemy's, it's still 4 people with good communication, knowing what they're doing, playing what they're good at, with good coherence, against 5 people who may not have that. And generally I don't like that. In Heroes of the Storm they kind of have the same thing. but it seems to only be limited to quick matches and unranked stuff, so I'm not too bothered about that. Men of War Condemned Heroes will be finishing pretty soon, I'm pretty sure. So that has been a really fun game to play. It's interesting to go back to the older Men of War games, and they actually just released another Men of War game, which may come to a shock to a lot of you because there wasn't really any PR about it. And if I can just find it here, I wonder if... because it should be here. It says that I can buy the original Men of War, but I already have it, so that's kind of interesting. But they created a Men of War HD, and it is basically just Men of War. Is it Men of War Origins? Yes, so it's called Men of War Origins. Assault Squad 2 Men of War Origins, so it's kind of a weird name. But it is made by the same company that made all the other Men of War, so Digital Mindsoft and the 1C company. And it is a high-definition remake of the old Men of War game, which is awesome. One of the issues that some of the old Men of War games had is the control of how, you know, the whole thing works. And luckily, with an upgrade like this basically means that it breathes a bit of new life into the game. How weird that it it says that I should buy it again, even though I already have it. That's interesting. I don't have Origins though. I would buy it if I hadn't played the original, and also if I wanted to do some videos on it, but I've already played through the original on the channel, and also having played all the missions and stuff, the great thing about Assault Squad 2 is the modding community, and a lot of them, a lot of mods are actually just some of the old Men of War games, but in the Assault Squad 2 engine, so you can actually play the whole Red Tide game in Men of War. You can also play the whole of the, what is it? The Faces of War campaign, which was the game which came out before Men of War. And I think I'm actually going to play that. I do have the original, so I will be playing the original and not a modded version, just because they still update Men of War Assault Squad 2 a lot, which is great. But it does mean that it kind of screws with a lot of the mods. Moving on to sports. Recently in cricket, I told you about the IPL the last time. Well, it's pretty much, it's not over, but it's nearly over. And the team that I support have got absolutely trounced in the whole damn thing, which makes me very sad, because they have an amazing team. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked out for them at all. They bet a lot on this guy called Tymal Mills, which I talked about before, who is basically a 2020 specialist, not down to the fact that he's amazing at it, but down to the fact that he's had to focus on it because of the fact his action means that he kind of gets screwed in long forms of cricket. He can't play a lot of cricket, so 2020 is the shortest format. One days are, you know, the middle format, and then tests or county cricket is the middle format. So he's basically ruled himself out of county cricket, but he's fine for one days and fine for 2020. So he's seen as a 2020 specialist, and unfortunately he didn't come through for RCB. I didn't think he was worth what he got, but I was still hopeful, and he's done okay, you know, 5 for 153 runs in 5 matches. But yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. RCB, just their batsmen didn't fire, which is very, very sad. If you look at a lot of their results, it's mainly down to the batting just letting them down. They have a lot of subpar runs got, I suppose you'd call it. So we're looking at probably Mumbai Indians, Kolkata Knight Riders, RPS, and Sunrisers Hyderabad. So it'll be interesting when it goes into the semi-finals for that. But unfortunately, yeah, my team got trounced, which is really sad. They're bottom of the table by quite a large margin. So yeah, they're kind of screwed. And I believe there's only there'll be 3 games left, so they do have a chance of getting out of bottom but that's about it. They get a chance of not getting the wooden spoon. Isn't that wonderful? In more cricketing news, England actually played Ireland in a one-day international. It was quite a fun game to watch. I had to wake up quite early for it. And it seems like Alistair Cook, who is the retired now England captain, I believe, is actually doing well in the county scene, so that's lovely to see. But the England versus Ireland match was really fun to watch. England did win by quite a large margin, but it was nice to see some English players who are kind of up-and-comers. The team seems to always be in constant rebuilding stage, or at least that's how I've seen it for the last 10 years. So it's nice to see finally everyone flourishing and really competing for the top 1 position. They do have a competition coming up, which is like a tri-series, I believe. So we'll have to see how they do there, because I think India are going to be there, who are seen as one of the top dogs as well. But it's nice to see Cook doing well at a county level. He captained England for a long time, and did a decent job. He had a great team around him, and even though he wasn't seen as forceful or anything like that, it seemed like he seemed to lead everyone pretty well. So let's go on to politics, because why not? Quite a lot has actually happened in the last few weeks. You had the French elections with Macron and Le Pen, and I was pretty sure that Macron was going to win, just because even though Le Pen did speak to some people about the immigration issues that France has, which they really do have, and no matter what people say, they are issues and they need to be addressed. Macron's economic platform was a lot stronger than Le Pen's. Le Pen wanted to go back to 1980 socialism in France. And France is already pretty socialized. If you look at the workforce, a lot of them work in the public sector. The energy sector is public, therefore, basically owned by the government. And so a lot of people are looking to try and privatize stuff. Basically because it is seen that it will revamp the economy, and I don't think that's completely wrong. We've seen it do wonders in places like America, places like Britain. So, socializing stuff is great if you're looking to, try and get everyone on an equal platform. But to privatize things generally makes them more efficient. There is something that Thomas Sowell said in one of his books, and also in many interviews. He said the time that he realized that he wasn't a Marxist, or he wasn't that left-leaning, is when he actually worked for the government for a few months and realized that they were too inefficient to do what the people wanted them to do. And I think that's completely right. And also the fact that when he talked about, we need to do something about the welfare stuff, maybe reform it in a certain way, and the department said no, because it was a third of their budget and they didn't want to lose it. I think that, happens quite a lot. There is always personal greed, even in politics. You hope that the people governing you are the most ostentatious, wonderful people in the world, and that is basically what socialism tries to promote. The issue is in every system of socialism that we've run into, in pure socialism running into communism, that doesn't happen. And if there is this ostentatious, beautiful person who, only cares about the people and everything like that, generally they get shot and are replaced by people who are tyrannical. The perfect example of this, which, harbored the world for a long time, is Stalin. Stalin was not just the man who, broke Russia. He is not the man who broke the USSR. He was not the one-man army which brought down the revolution. People seem to forget about Lenin, and people seem to forget a lot about other people who have kind of been lost to history, basically because of the fact that Stalin took over and killed a bunch of people. Saddam Hussein did exactly the same thing. Saddam, slightly different, you know, circumstances, not exactly socialist, much more domineering and everything like that. But everybody who was seen as a person who was against his party was taken out and shot. And that, for me, is the issue when we talk about socialism and communism. If everybody doesn't agree, and if everybody, you know, doesn't toe the line, then they're ousted. And that has happened in every regime under pure socialism or communism in the world. And, you know, that, for me personally, that doesn't really appeal to me, because I like free thinking. It's kind of as simple as that. So the French stuff, I can understand why they voted for Macron. Do I like it? Not really. For me, it definitely was a choice between two pretty bad candidates, very much like the US election, but different to the other elections going on. So we have the British election coming up, and the Conservatives basically held a, you know, in Parliament they basically said, right, we want an election, we want to gain a majority here so we can do what we want, and of course if Labour say no, then they look weak. So it's kind of you have to do this, or you're kind of screwed. And so they voted for a election which is going to take place, I believe, on June the 8th. So like in about a month's time from now, which is very close. And we just had the council elections, or the more local elections, which are generally a good sign of what's about to come. And unfortunately, Labour got hammered. The UKIP basically lost all their seats, because the reason UKIP existed for a lot of people was to get us out of Europe, and well, Brexit happened, so, you know, it doesn't matter what economic policy they fire at people. All the people who were from the Conservative Party who went to UKIP are now back in the Conservative Party. I believe the Conservatives gained like 500 seats, which is completely ridiculous, and Labour lost maybe 300, something like that. The Liberal Democrats are nowhere to be seen because, well, they're not for Brexit, so nobody cares about them. And also, Nick Clegg sold his soul to the devil when he decided that he was going to co-run the government with the Conservatives, and every promise that he made was wrong. Or it wasn't wrong, but it wasn't put through. Because, well, you know, there you go. It's as simple as that. If you're going to run into a coalition, and you are the smaller party of the coalition, get very used to the other party just saying no over and over again, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then you just end up resenting each other, then you just end up calling another election, because nobody can do anything. And that's basically what happened. Like, coalitions generally break apart in Britain and many other places. So the reason the election was called was so the Conservatives can get a majority, so any Brexit dealings, any dealings at all when it comes to the country, they can have absolute say. And it's basically looking like that will probably happen. Looking at the local election results, they were massively in favour of the Conservatives. Also, already the Conservatives have a majority. They're very clear on what they want to do with Brexit, which seems like the major issue that people have. And Labour, under Jeremy Corbyn, are trying to focus on other stuff. They're trying to focus on the fact that the election is not just about Brexit, but the thing is, for a lot of people, maybe even the majority, it is about Brexit. That's why the election was called. That's why we're having it, because of Brexit, because without a massive majority in Parliament, the Conservatives were just going to get thwarted by the other side, who don't want Brexit. It's as simple as that. So a lot of people do see this as a single issue, which may have ramifications down the line. There's a lot of stuff I don't like that the Conservatives are doing. I don't like the fact that they've decided that they have to be moral arbiters, and that they have to ban certain amounts of certain types of porn and stuff like that. That's very weird. It's one of those really odd things that they just kind of snuck through, and you know, that's not good. I think people should have free choice what they want to see when it comes to their porn dealings, especially when some of the things that they decided to outlaw was stuff like face sitting and squirting. It's a very, it's a very odd thing that they decided to do. But what I've been looking for over the last few weeks is a Labour manifesto. There's been no manifesto to be seen. So it looks like it got leaked today, which is, you know, a reason why I'm making this. And according to the draft, Labour would spend an extra £8 billion on social care over the next Parliament, refuse to make false promises on immigration, stress that any leader should be extremely cautious about using Trident nuclear weapons, which leader Jeremy Corbyn opposes, strengthen trade union rights, including increased unionisation across the workforce and repealing last year's Trade Union Act, scrap the public sector pay cap and reintroduce national pay bargaining, ban so-called zero-hour contracts, increase income tax for the highest earning 5% to raise an extra £6 billion for the NHS, build at least 100,000 council and housing association houses a year, reserve 4,000 homes for rough sleepers. So generally, that sounds pretty nice. There's also another thing. On energy, Labour would have at least one publicly owned supplier in every region of the country, with the government controlling the transmission and distribution grids. So, yeah. We're talking about very socialised policies here. I don't know where they're going to get the extra money from for social care, but, you know, if they can find it, they can find it. The last time Labour did this, they put us into a shit ton of debt, which nobody seems to care about. I mean, the Conservatives seem to are doing it as well at the moment, so I don't... one day somebody's going to come a-knocking, and I don't even know how that would work. Can you bankrupt a country? I suppose you can. Refuse to make false promises on immigration. Well, that doesn't actually mean anything. The issue with Labour right now is that we don't know their stance on immigration. The Conservative Party has been very strong on immigration, because it's always one of the top 3 issues that people want to talk about when it comes to the elections. But refuse to make false promises on immigration, that doesn't mean anything to me. Could I see a promise that you're going to make, maybe? That would be nice. And then, extremely cautious about using Trident nuclear weapons. I'm pretty sure that we already are. I don't see anybody willy-nilly talking about nuking a country, so I'm not too worried about that. Strengthen trade union rights, I'm for that. It's one thing I definitely don't agree with the Conservatives on. It would be nice if the Conservatives did do something like that, you know, increase workers' rights, but what are you going to do? It seems like they're against that. So that's a nice point for Labour. Scrap the public sector pay cap and reintroduce national pay bargaining. I don't like that. I don't like the idea of punishing people for doing well, especially if it's up to the private sector. If a private business decides that they're going to give somebody a large bonus, and it's got nothing to do with the government, and it's in the private sector, that is their business, not the government's business. Ban so-called zero-hour contracts, I'm all for that. If you don't know what zero-hour contracts are, basically in the UK, what a lot of companies have been doing is offering people zero-hour contracts. So you give them your name, your phone number, where you live, stuff like that, and basically they call you in when they need you. And that's how you get work. Now, obviously, this is incredibly unsustainable, because what you can do is you can have somebody go, 2 hours here, the next person 4 hours here, and you don't have to pay them benefits or anything like that. So, it's nice to see that they're going to get rid of them. I would like to see them abolished. The Conservatives have talked about it as well. Increase income tax for the highest earning 5% to raise an extra $6 billion for the NHS. I've thought about this quite a lot, and after looking into history, after looking into what has happened when you massively increase taxes on the wealthy, because their taxes are pretty high already. I mean, if I had my annual salary in the UK, I would be taxed about 60%, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But increase in income tax for the highest earning 5%, what will happen is they'll just leave. They'll just go somewhere else. Sweden's a prime example of this. They had a really thriving banking sector, and then they changed a bunch of laws around how you bank when it came to their taxes. So all the bankers did is they just left. They just all disappeared and went to England, where they didn't have to pay it. And as long as there are those tax havens, such as Ireland, such as, you know, parts of the West Indies, yeah, that's not going to work. Build at least 100,000 council and housing association houses a year. That's wonderful. The issue is that is not enough to actually cover the amount of immigration that is coming in to Britain right now. So therefore, what would have to be done is there would have to be more houses than that built by private companies, which I'm sure they'll do. But just adding more and more houses won't really solve anything if nobody has any money. Which is going to be the issue with, you know, mass immigration and also having a welfare state. Reserve 4,000 homes for rough sleepers. 4,000 homes is not a lot. If we look, let's see, homeless amount UK. Let's have a look. This is www.crisis.org.uk. So, yeah. Homeless people died just 47 years old. How many people are homeless? So, here we go. 57,740 households were accepted as homeless in England. In Scotland, 28,226 were assessed as homeless, and in Wales, 7,128 households were threatened with homelessness. 4,134 people slept rough across England on any given night in 2016, so a 16% increase compared to the previous year. So that just shows you the issues that we're having in England and how much more gargantuan they are than 4,000 homes for rough sleepers, but that is still nice. I'm guessing they will be concentrated in cities, which makes sense, and maybe from there you can set up something like a work program or try and get people back up on their feet. I'd be all in favour of that. One thing that has been criminal over the last few years is how we treat people who are having a rough time. People look down on them. No, we do not. We should not look down on them. We should help them. And if they don't want help, then fair enough. They can stay where they are. But a lot of people do. And a lot of people do have issues. And maybe it's not something, you know, it's not a right for us to do. It is just a moral thing to do. It is always right to help people who are needy. It's the idea of charity and everything like that. For me personally, it's a big part. I mean, my YouTube channel, right? I mean, I make content every day. I don't make any money off it or anything, but it gives people enjoyment. It means, you know, I can chat to people I'd never chat to. People from countries that I'll probably never visit. But it's just nice to talk to people. And I understand that. And I'm sure it is very similar for people who are homeless. I've met a lot of them, I've talked to a lot of them, and a lot of them do actually work, and they just can't afford a place to live, or they can't find somebody to take them in because they're homeless, and it's very sad. I'd love to, in the future, maybe set up some kind of refuge through maybe a scheme like this, but we'll have to see. The energy thing is interesting because it's basically going to set a standard price for energy. And the the British government, as I said before about efficiency, if you want efficiency, you don't get a government to do it. You get a private firm to do it. So whatever they set is probably going to be higher than what we see. They're also going to ban fracking. Everybody says that, it never seems to get done. And cut the voting age to 16 and increase tax for the top earning 5% in society. So the top 5% will just leave, and voting age to 16, I mean, I'm not sure. 18 is fine, but I mean, 16, you've got so much on your mind. And you're working out whether you want to go to college, university, you're working out if you want to get a job. You're working out where you want to go with your life, and you're trying to add more stuff to them, which is also voting. I mean, 16 is a very odd time as well. People are still maturing and everything like that. And the same argument could be made for 18, but I think at least at 18 people have a bit more of an idea what they're doing. 21, obviously, same thing. 25 is probably the best age, but I don't know. Don't think people would be okay with that. But we'll see what happens in the next election. My thoughts is that the Conservatives would probably win an overwhelming majority, all just down to Brexit. and that's really about it. But anyway, I need to go to the toilet, so I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've made it this far, hope you enjoy your night, and I'll see you next time.